every single prophet sent to mankind, Musa, Isa, Muhammad, peace be upon them all, was rejected. Not by strangers, by his own people, the people who knew him best. And for centuries, we've been told the reason is simple. Those people just didn't believe in God. They were ignorant. They were stubborn. They didn't understand the message. I don't think that's true. I think prophets were never actually rejected for religion. I think they were rejected for something far more predictable and far more uncomfortable to admit. And by the end of this video, you're going to see that same reason still operating today. On the news, in your community, maybe even in yourself. Let's get into it. Here's the assumption almost everyone makes. People who rejected the prophets simply didn't have faith. They heard the message, they weighed it, and they decided God wasn't real, or the messenger wasn't credible. But if you actually go back and look at who rejected each prophet first, and who accepted him first, a completely different pattern shows up. It has nothing to do with who understood theology and who didn't. It has everything to do with who had something to lose and who had nothing to lose. Let's start at the beginning. Let's start with Ibrahim. Peace be upon him. His people didn't just worship idols out of confusion. Many of them carved and sold those idols for a living. Statue making was a trade, an entire local economy built around producing and selling gods. So when Ibrahim broke the idols and called his people to worship the one God alone, he wasn't just correcting a belief. He was threatening a livelihood. Every craftsman who carved idols, every merchant who sold them, stood to lose his income the moment people stopped buying gods made by human hands. That's exactly why they didn't respond with a theological argument. They responded by trying to burn him alive. Not because he was wrong about God, because he was right, and being right was going to cost them their trade. Generations later, you see the same shape again, this time with Musa. Peace be upon him. He came to Pharaoh with one message: worship the one God and let the children of Israel go. Now, was Pharaoh confused about who God was? No, Pharaoh understood the claim perfectly. That was the problem. Musa wasn't asking Pharaoh to consider a new philosophy on the side. He was asking Pharaoh to give up his throne, his divinity, his workforce, and his entire economic system, because the Israelites weren't just subjects, they were slave labor, the backbone of Egypt's economy. Pharaoh didn't reject a religion he'd never heard of. Pharaoh feared a new order. Accepting Musa's message meant losing his crown, his god status, and his empire's labor force in a single sentence. So he didn't debate the theology. He called it sorcery. He called Musa a liar. Anything except the real reason. This message was going to cost him everything he had built his identity on. And notice something important? Who followed Musa first? Not Pharaoh's court, not the nobles. It was the enslaved Israelites. The people with nothing left to lose in the current system, and everything to gain in the new one. Now fast forward to the final and greatest example. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, grows up in Makkah, known as Al-Amin, the trustworthy. Before prophethood, the same tribal leaders who would later become his fiercest opponents trusted him to settle their disputes and hold their valuables. So when revelation came, were they confused about the message? No. Many of them understood it with painful clarity. That was exactly the problem. Makkah's economy revolved around the Kaaba, and specifically around the hundreds of idols housed inside it. Tribes would travel from across Arabia to visit those idols, trade in Makkah's markets, and pay respect to the guardianship of the Quraysh. Remove the idols, and you don't just change a belief system, you collapse the entire economic and social hierarchy that Makkah's elite had built their power on. And it went deeper than money. Islam declared that a formerly enslaved man like Bilal ibn Rabah was equal in the sight of God to a noble like Abu Jahl. For men whose entire identity was built on tribal status and lineage, that wasn't a small theological detail, that was an earthquake under their feet. So again, who accepted the message first and fastest? Bilal. Sumayya, Ammar ibn Yasir, the enslaved, the poor, the socially marginalized, they didn't reject a God they'd never heard of. The elite of Quraysh rejected a system that no longer put them on top. Now here's the part that actually proves this isn't about theology at all. Watch what happens after a message stops being resisted and starts being accepted at scale. It's almost never because people suddenly examine the evidence and change their minds. It's because the message got bent, softened, blended, made flexible until the people in power could keep their power inside it. Look at how Christianity spread across the Roman Empire. It wasn't resisted forever and then suddenly, purely accepted on its own terms. It was restructured. Roman elites didn't have to give up their palaces or their influence. Many of them simply became church leadership instead of pagan priesthood. Existing pagan festivals didn't get abolished, they got renamed and folded into the calendar. The empire didn't dismantle its hierarchy for the sake of the message got reshaped to fit inside the hierarchy that was already there. That's the pattern. Religion doesn't spread widely because power finally surrendered to truth. It spreads once truth gets diluted enough that power doesn't have to surrender anything. And this is exactly why the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, warned us so specifically about Bida, innovation into the deen. Not because scholars centuries later would suddenly forget the Quran, but because the community itself would be tempted, generation after generation, to soften the edges, to let a cultural practice slide in here, to let a compromise slide in there. Not to disbelieve outright, that's rare, but to gradually reshape the religion into something that no longer threatens anyone's status, income, or comfort. That is the real danger, not open rejection, quiet dilution. A version of the message that everyone can accept, precisely because it no longer costs anyone anything. Here's where I want to slow down, because this is the part that actually matters for you and me. It's easy to watch history and think, I would have been different. I would have followed Musa immediately. I would have accepted the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, on day one. But be honest with yourself for a second. If a truth showed up in your life tomorrow, one that was completely correct, completely from God, but accepting it meant losing your income, your social circle, your reputation, your comfort, would you actually accept it right away? Or would you start finding reasons to delay? Reasons to look into it more, reasons to wait and see what other people do first? That hesitation, that's not a lack of faith in God. That's the same fear Pharaoh had, the same fear the Quraysh elite had. It's just wearing a modern outfit. So here's the real takeaway. Every prophet in history was rejected, not because people looked at the evidence and rationally concluded God didn't exist, but because accepting the truth demanded a price some people were not willing to pay: status, money, comfort, belonging. That's the real reason, every single time. And before you go, drop a comment. What's the one thing in your own life that truth would cost you the most to change?